Hi, Leo.
Hi, good morning.
Good
And
morning.
it's afternoon here in Doha.
And it'll be a lot warmer in Doha than it will be here. Yeah, so it's like we've been going through a cold spell, sort of like it's been,
Hmm.
about 3 degrees, 4 degrees, and yeah, we last weekend we had some snow as well, which is just like, oh,
Wow. Yeah.
didn't stay around very long though.
So far we're still enjoying the good weather here in Doha, and in a couple of weeks it's gonna change. Today, I believe the minimum temperature is still tonight. I think it will still be 18, and today I guess it's somewhere around 25. So,
Yeah, we only get that in the summer.
uh, and that's your summer.
That's our summer.
Yeah.
Other than the well, morning, Trevor. At least it is morning with you.
Uh, what time is it there now? 11 o'clock?
11 o'clock. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so what do we have here?
We can't hear you, Trevor. Still nothing. Hi, Loveness. Oh, we've lost Loveness again. Trevor, are you still on? No, we still can't hear you. The wonders of technology. Hi, morning, Loveness, or I'm not quite sure where you are. Hi, Robert.
Hello, Pamela. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I
Yes,
can
we can.
hear you. We can hear you.
I'm all right. How are you too?
Yeah, we can't hear Trevor.
Okay. My
Um,
network is so erratic. That's why I'm trying not to put the video on.
and
Yeah.
that's a shame that we can't see you, but it does make sense because of the signal, doesn't it? Morning, Robert and Robert. So Robert Nicol, Robert Jukes, good morning.
Hi Pamela, sorry, I couldn't turn off mute a minute ago.
Well, it seems to be so Julie's had to sort of reissue the link, which is what the wonders of technology again. Sort of Trevor, I think he's still struggling with his sounds. Trevor, have you got your sound yet?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, got you.
There
Great,
you go.
brilliant.
I don't know what Zoom doesn't like. My laptop doesn't like Zoom, so there you go.
Morning, you right? Yeah, he was all right.
So,
Morning.
Robert.
Hi, right. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. So that I've got Robert Jukes, but no video for Robert Jukes. Is that okay?
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, and Robert Nicol. So we've not met before, have we?
No, I only yeah, Julian, he popped me in this group a couple of weeks back, I think.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, which is great. So thank you. Hello.
Yeah, so what one of the things we want to do is just and the reason for calling this a little bit earlier than we would normally do is that we only got so far with introductions and trying to understand what people's objectives are of being part of this group. So when we'll actually start, I'll talk about what was some of the consensus, but then sort of say what else are people looking to actually achieve out of it and what particular risks do we want to focus on. So anybody that wasn't involved the last time, we need to make sure you get your contribution into this.
Pamela, just a quick one from me, Trevor.
Yeah.
I've got to drop out just for about 10 minutes at 12 o'clock, just we're doing a charity event as a company, and there's a bit of a photo shoot. So I've got to quickly
Okay.
run out, change my top, put a t-shirt on, run back in. So just my apologies now. I will be back on, but I just got to do that, if that's okay.
No problems whatsoever. And one of the things that we want to touch on this morning is just that conversation we had about project versus sort of like network and professional development. And so we'll make sure that you're around when we actually sort of talk about that.
Yeah.
Do we think that's it? Because we're over 11 o'clock now. Shall we get going?
Yeah.
So I'll just make sure, in case there's anybody that's not coming up on my screen, can I just do a register check? So we've got Robert Dukes, Robert Nichols, we've got Trevor,
Yeah.
we've got Loveness, we've got Leo. Is that it? Anybody else on the line that I haven't mentioned? So Robert Dukes, Robert Nichols, Trevor, Loveness, and Leo. Yeah.
I saw a couple of apologies come in this morning, I think.
Yeah. Alzebi. Hi, we can see you now, Robert.
Yeah, it's the security settings on on our end. I don't know why Zoom wasn't installed on this computer. I've just swapped my work computers over. So
All right.
laptop, and it wasn't installed, and then it was something to do with the camera. It wanted some kind of admin access. I don't know why. The way we set up is admin access is usually only for certain things. So I don't know if it was the installation or something. I don't know. Someone here will be more technical than I am, and
we just seem to this is the problem. Like, technology is great when it works, but I think this morning it's one of those. A number of people have had issues. Well, welcome everybody. And for those of you that haven't met, I'm Dr. Pamela Gellertley. My background, which I'll just go through very briefly, is I've been in healthcare for over 40 years, and so I've actually worked in health and safety, but also I work in what we call health risk management. So my organisation has actually been developing an integrated approach to every aspect of health in the workplace, whether it's health and safety, or whether it's health benefits or its well-being. So I've got a particular interest in sort of people risks, because as part of my work, including my doctorate that I did, was actually sort of looking at not only what comes out from a safety point of view or a health point of view, but what are those underlying risk factors, including the biopsychosocial approach that I can actually sort of talk to you about if people aren't familiar with that. So I'm happy to sort of say a lot more on that, but I don't want to take too much time. And we heard from everyone last time, but maybe for the people like the two Roberts, could you let the group have a little bit of background about yourselves, so we could just know what sort of work that you're doing and what your interests are? If we could start there.
Which Robert do you want to go first?
I don't mind.
Robert, do you have a preference?
No, mate, I'm all good. So if you want to go first, I'll go first, whatever. I'll let you take the pick.
All right, fair enough. I'll jump in and do it then. Yeah, so a few of you obviously don't know us from well, the earlier kind of stages of this program. Yeah, my name's Robert Dukes, Health, Safety, Environment and Quality Manager at Norfolk Tissue.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Moet. We're just doing some initial introductions with the people that are actually joining us for the first time. Sorry, Robert.
We're Health, Safety, Environment and Quality Manager at Northwood Tissue in Lancaster, deputised for the Group Head of Health and Safety, who covers 11 sites in the UK and 2 in Spain. And yeah, we are predominantly a tissue manufacturer. We produce, we take in recycled paper fibre or paper material. We reduce it down to the fibre. We then process that into parent meals, and we then either sell them back into the market, or we put them into consumer goods to sell basically to the away from home tissue market. Essentially, my kind of interest really being involved in this is giving back to the community, helping other people kind of take that step forward, because in my career I've been very lucky and very fortunate to have a lot of mentors, a lot of people that have been able to guide me and support me and help me make that next step. And I think that's kind of, I've always found it enjoyable to give back in that, and that actually some of the most powerful moments in my career has been when I've been at them kind of career events. And I remember one of the Future Leaders ones I went to was you had a room full of all these future leaders, and then someone said about imposter syndrome, and everyone was a bit like, oh, and everyone's had it, but you had a CEO of a major company put their hand up to say, I suffer from imposter syndrome. You had, the health safety director for Sainsbury's. You had the Mercedes-Benz, Mercedes Formula One team, head of health and safety, all put their hands up at the same time. And then everyone else in the room put their hand up and said they suffer from it. And that was just a really empowering moment in my career. So when I think back, that's the kind of impact that I'd like to have, giving back to the community. In terms of progression myself, I'd like to develop them skills further myself to actually move into the next role and move into potentially a head of health and safety role myself. And that's kind of it with that. I am doing a PhD part-time. So when you said about doing a doctorate, that's something that I'm in that journey now, and I understand the pain of that.
So what are you actually doing? So what's your thesis going to be on?
So the PhD I'm doing it in is organisational health and wellbeing at Lancaster Uni, and my thesis I'm looking at doing in the paper industry, I'm actually looking at doing it on different wellbeing demands and needs from different stakeholders within the paper industry. So what I mean by that is, what are the demands from the shop floor versus the team leaders and supervisors versus middle management and then the senior leadership. Now, there's been a lot documented in different industries, different organizations, but in the paper industry, we're very much at the start of the wellbeing journey. If you look at a lot of the wellbeing initiatives that CPI have pushed through, they have struggled a lot. And so for me, I really want to kind of take the industry really and put, kind of understand what they are across the different levels and then put that together to then try and form some kind of initiative where we can drive that well-being in the paper industry, because at the moment it still is very, some companies are quite forward thinking and others are very very limited. And when you look at the overall adoptance of well-being initiatives in the paper industry and the CPI strategy, it's still quite low, just unfortunately. So that's kind of what my thought process is.
They're not alone. And the first thing to tackle is definition of well-being, because I mean that's wide-ranging in itself. But it's a great time to be doing this, because I was at dinner with Lord Bethel and Dame Carol Black Monday evening, and various other sort of people representing different parts of the industry. But what is, and I don't know how many of you were aware of the consultation paper that went out in October on occupational health, and then another one that went on around taxation. And this is where Dame Carol has actually now been given the job of actually developing a new framework for occupational health. And it really is that, some of my work, and I think the work as you go through your PhD will actually identify, is the traditional approach to occupational health with occupational health physicians, occupational health nurses, very clinically focused, is very now old-fashioned, and it's not necessarily delivering to employers' needs. It sort of tags a bit of well-being onto the end of it in some cases, but I think it is about sort of developing a new approach. I've been involved in developing a very different multidisciplinary approach to health and well-being, and it's to your point of what do the various parts of the business need, what's the main board want, but what do the employees want, and everything in between. So I think it will be a fascinating journey, and I'm sure you'll learn a lot and get it. How far are you through with it now?
So it's actually a dual type of PhD. So the first 2 years are taught to make sure you understand the different research techniques you're using, and then the second 2 years are the research phases. So we're just coming to the end of the second year this year with the talk phase, and then move on to the research phase from there. So it's interesting, to be fair, and I'm probably more ahead in some respects because the CPI are launching a new wellbeing committee. I'm going to be chair of that, so I've already had my thought process on that for a while. So whereas some students probably haven't got round to thinking of the thesis, I'm kind of already starting to formulate, right, what am I going to do? You know, and I've kind of got it, just waiting for some of the access to kind of come through and agreements to be given. And then I can start putting that together.
You can ask the colleagues on the call, although they're not in the paper industry, but you know they might be able to help in other ways. But I'd certainly be happy to help as well if there's anything I can do. But in terms of the emerging risks that you see therefore in the paper industry, I mean, is there anything particular that you'd like this group to focus on, or anything that you're sort of particularly interested in getting out of the group?
Yeah, so when you look at the emerging risks, for me, there is a lot that we're going to have to deal with. You can see it with AI. How do we bring that into the workplace and actually utilize it in the right way? I think we're seeing people use it for maybe the wrong purposes at times, especially when you look at universities. You can certainly see some of the challenges there. But it's channeling it in the right way. I've noticed some employees using ChatGPT to do stuff, which is brilliant because some of it they get is fantastic, but other things they get, they don't really know what it's saying. So it's getting them to use it in the right way. Actually, how we can bring that in to modernize some of our technology usage. So we're very tech heavy especially at my site. We use all tablets. We digitalized everything. We use Power Automate, Power BI. We use a lot of these digital services to get us the information we need. Because I just hate paper records anyway. I hate scanning. So I did as much as I could to digitalize stuff and automate stuff. But there's risks with that though as well. It's understanding what those risks could be. As we look ahead, you've got industry, is it 4.0? As we look at that, we started to look at some of that kind of integrating some of that into our processes. The concerns.
I missed that, Rob, but what you mentioned then, sorry, I lost it. It's
is industry 4.0, the all to do with your next level of technological development. So that's what we're kind of looking at now. The environmental and sustainability issues are massive for us. We're looking, at trying to improve our environmental and sustainability performance. We've looked at supply chains and bringing some of them more localized, because we did have some stuff we were getting from, further afield like China and Southeast Asia. But we found with COVID and then now the instability in the Middle East with the attacks on the shipping, that's impacted some of our supply chains. So we're bringing some of that more localized at the moment. Other aspects in environment sustainability, like trying to hit the CCA targets and EU or UK ETS targets to reduce our energy bills. So that's more strategic investment in reducing that our energy needs, and then also on the flip side of that, reducing water usage. Although we are very good at what we use and what we actually what's the word, we don't, we treat our water before it's discharged to the sewer. There is we're still extracting from a river at the end of the day, so it's being conscious that how do we reduce that and streamline that a little bit better. But then there's the other side of it though, is how we work with our partners on supply chain and on that as well. We're starting to look further afield and rather than looking internally, we're looking more at kind of, is it scope 3 emissions through our supply chain.
You've got a lot of emerging risks there.
There's a lot. You look at the other one as well. Actually, one last one. Sorry, skills as well. I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but there's a massive skills shortage in the UK. And how do we ensure succession planning? How do we train people to relevant skills? How do we keep them at that level? If you look at a lot of the younger generations coming through, they all want to be footballers or Instagram or TikTokers, and actually not everyone's going to do that. And when they come to the world of work, some of them are interested in their phones. They're not interested in going to university to learn a degree or do an apprenticeship. So how do we get them in and get them engaged so that they actually learn this stuff to be able to do the job? Otherwise,
and what's an interesting point with that, and particularly with the vloggers and everything else that you get, is, and we were talking about it on Monday evening again, is that whole social and the economic impact. I mean, we've had a lot of older people post-COVID that have opted out of work and not come back into work, and it doesn't look as though they're likely to come back in. But now we're actually seeing a lot of young people, for some of the reasons you mentioned, now opting out of work, probably because they think they can make a lot more money elsewhere and have a lot of free time. So I think it is a sort of new interesting risk. risk. We won't be able to cover them all, but what I'd like to get out of today is to actually agree which ones we're going to focus on as a group and who can actually sort of help each other. Certainly AI and the technology one came up before as well. So I'm sure that will probably go on our list. But maybe that whole skill shortage piece comes into that people issue, and that definitely sort of the whole people thing came up earlier. Thank you very much. Can I
Yes,
go
okay.
to the other Robert?
Robert 1 and Robert 2 are going to be, I reckon.
Yeah. Which one
So-
would be number 1 and which one's to be number 2?
Just find out by the end of this call, I guess. So my career trajectory is a little bit different to Robert, number 1 or number 2. So main bulk of my career I've spent in gym management. So running 24-hour gyms, running leisure centres and whatever else. But about 4 years ago, I had a switch up and gone into a health and safety specific role. Spent about 6 to 9 months in an Amazon warehouse, which was quite interesting. Before then coming into the company I work for now, which is the Gym Group. We've got 234 sites across the UK. We're a 24-hour gym chain. As you can imagine, being a 24-hour gym chain, that presents its own problems, or not problems, own issues. One of
Challenges.
challenges. One of which we're taking up and spending a lot of time at the moment is trying to get primary authority assured advice for remote supervision. Because as you can imagine, running 24 hours, we don't have staff on site for 24 hours. Bit tricky, and it's hard to pin down in certain instances because there's no legislation, no guidance, nothing out there. So we're kind of, us and a few other competitors are forging that trail. Don't get me wrong, it's been in place quite a long time, but we're just looking to trying to get that assured advice across the line. So the challenges that presents are quite interesting, and the solutions we're looking at as well, which can include AI and facial rec and bits and bobs like that, which we're looking at for future. But obviously your more standard things we offer are like remote supervision via CCTV monitoring and help points and defibs on all sites and available suitable information instruction for members as well. So a lot that goes into that. Yeah, one of the other things we're looking at as well is sustainability. We're trying to be the UK's first carbon neutral gym chain. I think we've set a target for 2035 off the top of my head to achieve that. So we're looking at a lot of air source heat pumps for our water heating. We're looking at solar and whatever else, so to help reduce our cost from electricity basis, and even to equipment. We're looking to get self-generated equipment rather than relying on a power source. So that's quite interesting as well. For me, why I joined the group, kind of like I said, I'm relatively new on my safety journey, so looking to get some shared learning experiences from people in other industries that potentially have higher risks. Because relatively speaking, being a gym, we're quite low risk compared to someone who works on a construction site or whatever it may be. So yeah, looking to expand my horizons that way too.
And probably what we'll need to do, and I don't think it's worth taking the time again, but is actually trying to get a little profile on everybody around to everybody, so we all know what each other does, rather than sort of take time. So talking about that now. One of the things I was going to ask you, who are your customers? Where do you get your customers from?
Whoever wants to pay the money, essentially. So we've got about 800,000 members throughout the UK, but that could be a spread of anyone. So generally speaking, you're looking at 18. Well, we take membership from 16 years old. So obviously 16 to 18 presents its own problems. But generally speaking, you're looking at about 18 to 40 being our kind of main membership base. But anyone who wants to join essentially is open-ended. You can just go online and pretty much sign up. So that includes everything from people with disabilities, vulnerable persons. We covers it all. It gets quite interesting when you have people with mobility issues wanting to use a gym during unsupervised hours and bits and bobs like that. So there's some interesting conversations at times, but our be all and end all and our motto is breaking down barriers to fitness for all. We want essentially everyone to be able to join. So in D&I, inclusivity is massive on our agenda. We want to be that place where everyone feels welcome, essentially.
do you capture much data on the population that use your facilities?
Yes.
What do you want to share? If nothing obviously confidential, but anything interesting, the trends that you're actually seeing?
To be honest, I don't have it to hand. It's not something that I deal with
Okay.
on a day-to-day basis. That's one of the other teams that deals with. I can get access to it, so I can update you on a future call. But yeah, I don't deal with that in my current role, so we say.
Okay. Is there anybody else on the call? I don't think there is that hasn't that is new. I think everybody else was on at the last meeting.
I know Mohit, he messaged me because I work for him in a couple of groups. He's having trouble with the sound. He can't hear us.
Yeah.
That's why he's popped off. So he'll be back on. So
it's that morning. Can I do a couple of housekeeping things that Julie wants to make sure that we get online? Make sure we've done. Has everybody now joined the platform as a mentee? Is the question.
Not as yet, no. I'm not sure what I'd do with that. So if you could send me some directions on that, that'd be fab.
Okay.
I'll need to join it on that. I think I had some issues joining the LinkedIn group as well. We got that sorted in the end. Finally managed to get part of the LinkedIn group the other week as well.
Yeah, because I mean that was the other thing is making sure everybody's on that. I'll get Julie to get some instructions out on that as well. We've got some Robert Dukes, who's not on the call, but he's actually volunteered to actually do the Centicle article for March. But we're going to need one or more people actually looking to do the article, which the next one is for July. So if people can think of any sort of subject matters that may come out of what we're actually discussing here, or might be some of the other things, anything that's going to be interesting for the Sentinel article, that would be good.
I volunteered for that one. It's me that's volunteered for the March one, I think.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Oh yeah, Robert Jukes. Yeah,
yeah.
So it didn't click. It's been one of those days. Yeah. So Robert, what are you actually going to do that on, out of interest?
I don't know. They give me a list what they wanted. So what the list that they give me was I can read it to you. If you give me a second. It's on my to-do list to come back to him, like, because I said I'll do it and whatnot. I've just we've had a few things. So they were looking for basically why having sport as emerging leader is necessary and useful. What I hope to gain from it and achieve my career. Something about me and some of the ideas that I want to raise about it. So they've not given us too much of a description now. There's a few things there that they're obviously wanting, and then we can do it on whatever, to be fair.
Yeah, well, I think I don't know whether anybody else has got any thoughts as to what might be of interest to the readership as to what Robert should focus on. I don't know how many words you've actually got.
It's just 1,000 words, I think. So, and then probably throw a few pictures in as well, make it look all engaging and that.
Has anybody got any advice for Robert as to what they think, particularly some of those of you that have been involved in these groups for a lot longer? Has anybody got any advice? So Mo, it's not on, but Trevor or Leo, any advice for Robert on what maybe you should focus on that the membership would be interested in?
Pick one that you enjoy. You've done enough, Robert. You've done enough articles. I'm sure you'll be fine.
I was thinking maybe like doing, I don't know about how everyone feels, but maybe like some of the challenges that people are facing, or like that we've seen in the industry that futures leaders face, and how to try and address some of them. Maybe I don't know if that's one that is relevant or not to people, or.
I guess this is the time for you to exercise your risk assessment and risk management skills. Yeah, understanding the context and assessing the risk from its element of the context.
So, in terms of what we want to focus on, then, and I think we can't do everything over the next few months, but I mean, what came out strong from a number of people the last time was the whole, these people risks. Robert, you've just mentioned some of them as well, but Leo, I think you mentioned them, Moet mentioned them. Trevor, I think some of the videos that you did the last time was around that. And you know, there's a whole range of people risks, doesn't there? You know, there's physical, there's psychological, social, lifestyle, behavioral, financial. And I think, to me, one of the problems that we've got within the industry, and I was at a meeting yesterday that just reinforced it, that major company with one of our clients, and they've just got a new health and safety director in who went to the main board and actually started talking to the main board about the problem with work-related stress. And they were using data from the HSE report, which then put the board in absolute panic. And then it's like, how much money is it going to cost to address this? And it set off a whole chain of problems in the sort of main board in the organization. What he didn't realize is that within the organization, and for many years, they had been capturing data on perceived work-related stress, actual work-related stress, but then also stress at work. So I think we've got issues, haven't we, in sort of definitions. And the health and safety, I've seen them do it before, and I've spoken at a RSM conference before, whereby they post some information on and actually say something's work-related stress when actually it's stress at work. It's the number of lost days and the hours lost and things in terms of stress in entirety. So do we, as part of this, want to try and focus on something in terms of helping each other understand the people risks, but maybe also from a project point of view, is do we want to sort of, and it might be picking up from what some of you have done before, and go, do we want to focus on making some firm suggestions on how we need to, like, let's make some definitions clear, because stress is a big one. And yet it's often misquoted, not only by the HSE, by lots and lots and lots of people. And certainly all of my research and information and data is that stress is multifactorial. It's rarely just work. It's normally a whole host of things that are going on in sort of people's lives. So that's just one aspect of people risk, but then there's a whole other bit. And I think, Robert, what you, and this is number one or number two, Robert Jukes, you've been just sort of been talking about some of the people risk, but also Robert Nichols, you actually been, you know, I think some data of you see and what you actually sort of see in the gyms is we actually see, you know, we've got people that are inactive, we've got people that are overweight, and all of these things start bringing health and safety risks and burdens to work. So are we all comfortable that there is something on the people side, and I know I'm biased, that we want to do there? And is that one subject matter? Or so who would actually vote for focusing on people and that the components of the people risks and helping each other learn on that?
I think it's how do you define it as well, like you said earlier as well, around that, like the well-being, the health, the whole thing around it. I think it's fascinating. That's why I'm doing a PhD in it. But yeah, I think that's something I'd be happy to, but it depends on the rest again. And you know, there is a few there's gonna be a few ones out there that we're gonna have to look at. So I don't know if you want to do we have a list of them all or not?
Well, and I can put a list together, but there's something called the biopsychosocial approach, which is an evidence-based approach that was actually started in, not believe it or not, in 1977 from a guy called Engel, specifically relating to musculoskeletal disorders. And this is where he was actually saying we need to actually change the medical model to move into things that look at how do people think, how do they feel, do they ruminate on things. So it's actually looking at the whole cycle and psychological and social aspects of MSK. But what has happened since then is that whole biopsychosocial is starting to spread to other areas of medicine. But it's also, I mean, the health and safety executive now sort of talk about it, but when, again, they write about it, they don't seem to understand it. So we could actually just take the biopsychosocial approach and actually focus on that and define what that means and focus on that. Or we could we could actually pick something like stress, mental health, or musculoskeletal health, or people's behaviours. And I think Robert, you also threw in the whole piece about people's sort of development and competencies and things like that, which is another issue that we have to face. So we can't do everything, but I think taking it as a subject matter, we could define it more. And share experiences, and Trevor and Leo, I think, and I don't think Moat's back on, is he? Oh, well, Rashid, hello. So, but is it that is there something in the work that you've done before that you want to maybe add something in that would make sense to actually focus on this time?
I think the piece about development and bringing people in and understanding what health and safety professional is, so people coming in, look, like Robert too, was it? Robert too said about joining the health, joining at a different time. That piece, what makes a good risk professional. We started that with our podcasts and the stuff like that, and just building on that, I think fits with what I'm interested in terms of development. I think that fits quite nicely to build on that, because that was the intention of the first project. We got to a point over the amount of time, but there was still more that we wanted to do in terms of bringing in, talking about risk, not just in terms of health and safety, but risk in total. Risk is viewed in different ways in different types of industry. So I think, financial risk, all that sort of stuff. Risk professionals exist across businesses, and people, they actually don't realise they're risk professionals. So bringing that in only makes it more inclusive and understanding. And ultimately, from my point of view, and people might disagree, is that we want people to be thinking about risk at all levels and in all roles, and not just think it's the guy in the corner, which is the old style of thinking it's your job to do it, or the girl in the corner, it's your job, so you're looking after risk. But actually, everyone's looking after risk. So that's what we were trying to, one, build the ultimate risk profession, but also explain that actually all people involved are involved in risk, and risk needs to be considered, because that's for the greater good. That makes some sort of sense.
I think for me it makes perfect sense, because it's like we all as human beings have to face risk every day of our lives. But you're right, it's risk has been sort of put into some little box as if it's something magical. And then
you could say, break it down. I'm quite basic. Risk isn't a dirty word. Risk is an important word, not a dirty word, and it's not someone else's job. It's everyone's job. It doesn't mean that risk should be viewed in the way sometimes it is, and maybe that's a bit of an old style thing. We are changing bits about, and link that is the behaviours as well, isn't it? Yes. Understanding that risk means behaviours, and that brings that piece in terms of people making choices, the right choices based on information, but it's not someone else, it's their priority as well. So yeah, I think that fits with me in terms of what I'm interested in and what I've started with Mohit and the guys involved in the podcast. That's what the intention was of the project. So to carry and build that on with other inputs is obviously what I think I'd like to do or be involved in.
Yeah, and I think, because after our last session, I had a chat with Julie when she was back, and I think there's no reason why you and those that are interested can't do that. I think it would be a shame to lose that work, but at the same time, we've also got to make sure that other members that might not want to do that we actually support and make sure they get the learns on that. So I think sorry, Robert.
Just on that, I think there's two things that Trevor's highlighted there as well. Was one aspect that I'll compounds together, because that's the thing that we're doing is in our roles, we're managing like a multitude of risks. So how do you actually prioritize them and then tackle them? Because as well as I do, you're juggling a few different players. You drop one, you stop one, the rest one's going to drop. You know what I mean? So there's that, and then the other aspect I've touched on that you raised as well is everyone's got this priority or this involvement that you touched on, which I think is key. And a lot of, I don't want to mean this in a bad way, but a lot of leaders in industry sit there and go, "Oh, health and safety, that's an health and safety manager's job."
Yeah,
they have an operations director, an operations manager. They've got an inherent ability. Half of their role is inherently going to be health and safety, environment. It's going to be risk. It's going to be, you're going to have HR risks. You're going to have all these different risks going on. That's half of their role. But they don't necessarily see it a lot of the time. They're just seeing, the things coming through. Are the machines producing on time? Are they getting product out the door? So there's a battle there as well to get them to take that ownership. I think seen some good schemes getting promoting that within the industry, but I think that in itself needs to be something that needs to be pushed further, because the best leaders you see, they understand these different risks, and they understand differences between one country and another country, and then one region and another region, and they're able to kind of balance all these risks to kind of formulate a strategy to get forward. Whereas some of the poor leaders, shall we say, and that's bad, poor is a bad word, but you know what I mean when I say it. When you see them, they just focus on production and finance. They don't look at the other stuff, and then they wonder why they have a multitude of problems there. So I think you touched on that really well there as well.
And I think that's an important point, isn't it? I think that prioritization is sort of key, because we keep seem to be going down sort of rabbit holes, and something becomes fashionable, and we're not actually doing what we've just talked about.
And I think also, Robert,
Yeah.
Robert touched on priorities is really important. For just speaking on my job is I can sit down and do my priorities. I'm sure everyone can know what I'm going to say. And literally, they go out the window within a minute, because you walk in and someone else in another department thinks that their work is more important. And so it's that balance between my role is a support role, but also I have my own things that I want to do that I know will be beneficial if I have the time to invest in it. But if it's not about getting rid of my job, but ultimately you could say everyone needs to be a risk professional. We don't need a generalist. We want to concentrate on people being the specialist in key high risk, significant risk hazards, because everyone else is on the same boat and at a certain level of risk management or an understanding. So my piece in terms of emerging risk leaders and stuff like that, emerging risk leaders is that everyone needs a risk leader and needs to get the skills and the competence with the support that I can provide as maybe a specialist, as opposed to picking up all the stuff they don't want to do because I'm getting them out the mess that they've got themselves in, or advising them on the stuff that, because that's not me developing, that's not them developing. I'm trying to explain it in a certain way, so it's sort of involvement. Understand it's not a bad thing to be involved in, because it's a business benefit, and that's what we talked about in terms of not just the podcast bit. We were looking about what is risk. Risk is not just health and safety. Risk is environmental. Risk is economic. Risk is financial. Risk is contractual. Risk is everything. So getting that risk piece as opposed to the health and safety risk is very important. You think about the ISOs, the business risk assessment, the context, interest parties, all that sort of stuff. Understood, doing that properly. How many companies do that properly, or how many companies rely on the guy to arrange the safety manager or whatever to arrange the management review every 6 months and talk about the business risk of it, and then it moves on.
But I think on that point as well is again, it all goes off in silos. It doesn't come together. It's not integrated.
Yeah,
but
silos, good word. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then also what happens, and if you take ISO as a case in point, everybody starts panicking and doing something at the point that they're coming up to an audit, as opposed to it being embedded as part of the culture and what they need to do naturally. So
yeah, and that is because you get people to understand. It's easy. We read all the books, we've done all the courses, get the leadership involved, get everyone involved. It's easier said than done, because they've got priorities, they've got troubles, and but if it's embedded in what they do, that's the holy grail. And I know everyone talks about it embedded, and I'm trying to do it at my place. It's really hard work. It's really hard work to do that, because as the priorities come in, like we're doing some work in a height and something's not quite right, that becomes a priority because I'm trying to keep people safe. But actually, I'm doing that on the ground. I'm also doing the bigger picture. Let's get this embedded. Let's make the system actually work for us, not just tick a box in terms of getting an ISO standard. And I know I was talking about that 15 years ago when I first got into the sector. So it hasn't changed too much. But it's about educating people about risk and getting involved in it, isn't it? It's easily talked about, not done it. So it's developing that. Yeah.
Leo,
Yep.
hand up.
Yeah. How about in the next meeting, if we can talk about, excuse me, a plan. Like, for example, I do not know how well is the HSE, the Health and Safety Executive stress management standard. How well is it rolled out in the UK? Yeah, because I'm looking at if we're going to talk about people's risk, then if we're going to talk about the biopsychosocial approach, I think we need to use it as a model. We need to use our own framework so that we can correlate these two and come up with a project that would be supplemented by both the existing stress management standard, knowing that if you look at all these 6 elements of the standard, they're all connected to people's risk. So if we're going to use a biopsychosocial approach, we need to establish some sort of a framework, our own framework, and then connect them together so that at least the stress management standard will also give some sort of a weight into the project, knowing that it's already there as a reference literature for us, and to talk about risk assessment and managing risk of people's stress. Then I think that would really be a very good idea. That's just my suggestion.
Yeah, it's interesting about the HSE management standards, and I've spoken at conference a few times about this, but very, very few organizations, probably only about 5% of organizations, try and assess psychological risks. So one of the problems, and I think, Trevor, it's going to some of your points as well, is that, I think the way the HSE have actually sort of done this is that they've just tried to say, you actually assess psychological risk in this exactly the same way, identify the hazards, who can be harmed and how. So it's the 5 steps to a risk assessment process, but they haven't understood how you assess psychological risks and how they can manifest in the sort of workplace. And there's a lot of things that have actually been ignored. And when they sometimes talk about the biopsychosocial risks on their website, they're actually confusing biopsychosocial risks with other risks. So I think, to me, Leo, we could run something, if people are interested, which actually starts to look at the benefits of what those risk assessment and what is in the management standards, but evolve it. Because I think they came out in about 2004. So we're 20 years on. People are not using it because they don't understand how to use it. It's not been embraced. So to Trevor's point about people in high levels, in high management, understanding this, because it's been separated into health and safety, this is what they do. But then the safety leaders are going, it's not my job, it's HR job. But HR job don't understand risk. They don't do risk, so they don't do it. So I think it could be an interesting.
I think it's, and Leo, what Leo's point is really important. Even just the name of it, the management standards. I mean, we're looking at doing our, revising our stress risk assessment and all stuff like that. It just doesn't lend itself to actually do it. They don't understand. We talk about management standards in the business. It's about ISO standards and stuff like that. Even just maybe I'm a bit basic, but just the way it's sold and the way it looks, it's just almost like a forgotten part of the HSE website for me. That maybe that's my exposure to it. It just doesn't seem comfortable in terms of what it's dressed as and then sold as. I live on that basically. It's got to be simple. It's got to be easy. It's got to make sense what it's called to start with to get people involved in it. Maybe I'm just too basic, but we need to make sure it's relatable.
I'd go further than that as well, because if you look at the Lofted report, this was in 2011. They highlighted the general perception of risk by the average or general public is very poor. And now we take these people into the workplace, and one of the things we do when we get them in is we get people of all different cognitive abilities. We get some that are really keen, really sharp, and we have the opposite of stress with them. We have kind of what I call is waste out almost, that they're wasting potential, if you like. But the flip side, we have some people that are really, it can be challenging to get them to understand some of the basic concepts. So we put them through risk assessment training and as well as the Irish working safety training, just to get them to start to understand and start to comprehend how different risks can actually impact their role. Whether it works or not, we're still kind of in the trial phase to see whether it works. But that was one thing that was really stands out to me when you look at why these stuff isn't being utilised. It needs to be something that's very engaging, very easy to understand, but then B, it's something that we can get out there so the average person could also potentially use that as well, not just a professional, because it's that general public perception of being of poor risk management. I think is when you're bringing people into you and kind of onboarding them, you need to be tackling that as well. And I think that's the key there. I don't know if any of you have worked with the general public, but unfortunately I have in previous roles, and they can be quite challenging.
Just touching on that point there, we obviously we run in, like I said, we run a gym chain with 234 sites, and perception of risk and things like that, and psychoactive side of it is like, as an example, say you've got a member who joins one gym with said health condition, you could get that a member with exactly the same health condition in another gym, and the way they do the reasonable adjustments will be completely different. So getting people aligned on the same page to get similar control measures in place to make sure these members are safe and healthy when using our gyms is a challenge. So and that's that's site level managers. So when you filter it down to fitness trainers or whatever else may be, it gets a little bit tricky sometimes. But yeah, it's definitely one of our priorities as well. You could even link it to, I'm not sure if any of you are customer facing environments, but the level of violence and threatening behavior within our gyms has increased, as you've seen in the news with retail and whatever else, because of the state of the world. So when these do happen, and we've obviously got our EAPs in process in place and our crisis continuity plans and whatever else, which look at an aftercare thought. But how does that impact on that employee long term if they've been abused, or if they've been threatened, or whatever it may be? So yes, we deal with the incident, we ban the member, we deal with that process, but how does that affect them long term mentally, and the risk that faces to us and our business? Are they then afraid to come to work, to travel to work, to ride to work, walk to work, whatever it may be, on the back of any repercussions from them banning that individual, which we have had in the past? But it opens up a big discussion, I guess, about psychological safety, I suppose, and how comfortable you feel coming to work or whatever else, and dealing with these situations post event.
So
Yeah.
it sounds as though we're starting to evolve a plan of focus. I think, Trevor, probably you're looking at something which is almost like the umbrella, and which goes a lot broader in terms of, you know, but almost maybe it has to, we have to go on a journey, and it might be what do we actually focus on this group, but that doesn't stop this group also doing other things that might be of interest to any members of the group, and actually sort of working on that. So are we actually saying that we want to use this, the psychological piece, the management standards, and all the things that we've just talked about in terms of risk as a key focus of what we actually discuss in this group, and then from a network point of view, you know, people can actually work together, and I think a number of you want to get some outputs, don't you? You want to feel that you're actually achieving something out of what comes out of this, not just it being a learning experience on each occasion we get together, but something outside of that. Some of the members of the group won't want to commit anything other than you know, joining these sessions, so 2 sessions a year. But others of you I know are quite keen on actually moving it forward. So it sounds as though we've got, from this group here today, we've got a number of people that are quite keen to actually move things forward. So are we talking that psychological is the focus, or are we saying that we need to look further at what that hierarchy, that, you know, what Trevor's sort of really touching on? So what do we think?
I think there's probably room for two projects. You know, hopefully there's more people involved. There's obviously a few apologies and whatever, that people can sort of support both or be involved in stuff, and it's good to discuss both. I think if you just go down one route, you'd have to turn it around quite quickly and have an end date to move on to the next one. Does that make some sort of sense? Obviously, some of these projects are quite big, aren't they? That you need to sort of.
Well, I think they could go off in tangents. So, Trevor, do you want to send the group a note on what you see would be the project that is continuing from what you started?
Yeah.
So people that have not been involved have got an idea on that. And then, Leo, do you want to do a note on the psychological bit with the management standards?
I think Leo's just dropped off, I think.
Has he?
He's had to go, I think, and then come back, I think.
Okay. Or Robert 1, Robert 2. So I think, you know, if we sort of, I think Leo had got what was coming into his head, but I think it all links with what 2 Roberts have both said as well. But I think it's just, we need to get a note so we can actually say, is this what we're agreeing we're going to work on? And then what are we doing in this group and these meetings? And then what are we doing outside? And what support do we actually sort of need? Trevor's had a lot of experience of doing these sorts of things before, because you've been involved for
well, not. I just did one. I did a couple of projects in the first iteration. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but we just managed to get something through, because it was very difficult to get people together. But I think maybe some of the projects were quite big.
Yeah.
So breaking those down under a heading, maybe like within each heading, I think it's good.
Yeah.
I think, you know, mental health and well-being and stress, I think it's a good one. Good time. Obviously, it helps Robert with his PhD as well. That's always useful.
It's,
and
it's
then
not,
obviously
it's not just doing psychological health and well-being,
no.
if I have any.
But also the risk in terms of how it's viewed, embedding the word risk in terms of what people do and the development of people and understanding that, I think is obviously a project, but there's probably little bits in between that as well. But maybe that's, if I just throw down that my heading and maybe the guys prefer, and just have a discussion about that maybe on the group. Is there a private chat on LinkedIn or whatever, or have we got like a team site we want to add up? I don't know. That's probably a WhatsApp group or something.
I think it's all on LinkedIn, isn't it?
But I think we need to sort of, get the direction, agree a direction that people can buy into and know, and maybe set a bit of a program for that. I'm not saying I'm the best person to do that, but to set the program for that, those couple of projects, higher level projects, I think, to feed in. But it seems like we've had that good discussion in terms of the risk, the stress, and the well-being piece, and the psychological, and all that. I think it's an obvious one that everyone seems to have come to the party with today. And then I think there's that's not just me. I think there's a few bits to come off what I've done before. And I know Mohit was on there. Would be keen to continue doing some of that stuff, catching in that sort of what people view risk as, what is risk, who's involved in risk piece. In terms of what Robert said right at the start, encouraging people to come into it, understanding actually you don't need to be a health and safety professional. Risk is everywhere. And actually, when we started doing that a little bit, it was like people that work in finance actually might be the best risk professionals that do go into safety or do go into change their career slightly, because their viewpoint or their way of working, when it clicks to them, that is, they are talking about risk in the same way, can benefit our sector, our industry, and our
Sorry. The point I was going to make was about all the different types of well-being as well. Like we touched on it a little bit earlier, that you have your kind of mental well-being, your physical well-being. There's the financial well-being as well. I remember when I joined my organisation, I rang up the financial helpline thinking I'll get some advice on stocks and shares, and it was all to do with debt management and that. And I'm like, no, I want advice on what shares to buy in, blah 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 blah. But that's that conversation with the higher up of that, going, oh, we didn't think of that. Like, actually, we're targeting one end of our employees that might be struggling, but we're not doing anything financially supportive to employees that are doing okay financially. So there was a few things on that. What advice can we offer them and support we can offer them? And then it spirals then. You start thinking of like emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, and all the different aspects. And some people will have very little engagement with some aspects of it, but then actually other parts of the wellbeing strategy, they'll have a heavy engagement. So it's that whole
and it needs to be fit for purpose for all types of sector. If you're in a one place manufacturing scenario where you've got a lot of workforce in one place, then that some of those things work really well. But also, if we've got projects all over the country, small site teams all over the place, it's really hard to get. We've got the office guys, you can do something, and you have to think, going to work for the guys here, you start actually getting the culture sort of imbalance, because, well, I can't access that. I'm on site in the middle of a cable pit doing something. You've got a fruit bowl in the canteen. Brilliant, thanks for that. I'm not saying that, this very broad, sort of very simple way.
But it's a very good point, because, and particularly now, a lot of people working from home as well. You've got to get to that population. I think,
and we've got like that financial. We've got like lots of strategies, and we're probably doing more than we realise. I think a lot of companies are. We've got EAP. It has financial support. We've got a new one. It's really, we do financial planning, all sorts of stuff. And we've done exactly what Robert said. We've got like a timeline of stuff. We're doing physical health this month. Got loads of stuff. We're having a table tennis competition, but we're also doing a step challenge. But these things don't always relate to the guy on the ground doing the tasks. What am I? I just want to know where I can get some support or what I can do. And not everyone's going to accept it straight away, but there's a bit of a journey to go through and really see the benefits. So it's a real mix of stuff you can do that is available, loads. And sometimes maybe that the process is collecting up what people do now and what works and what doesn't.
We started badminton at our site.
But that's all part of a research part. But let me throw in a little bit of a bombshell to what happens, and this physical and psychological. I'm looking at all of you now, and I don't see you split into two, as one is physical and one is psychological. And that's what the biopsychosocial approach is about, is we are human beings, we are a person. The way in which we function, we don't have, something in a box called mental health and something in a box called physical health. What mental problems can actually, and I don't even like the word mental, but something that happens in our head. So the way we think, the way we feel, the way we react can actually manifest itself as much as a physical problem, as a physical problem can manifest itself as a psychological issue. We are connected. If you look at this, all of our systems, and let's say there's 6 main systems, all of our systems work together as one. So I think some of the things that we can actually bring to this is the fact that, and this is my bit about the whole health and well-being piece, is whenever we think of us as people and those people risks, and it goes, but I can't remember who said it now, what works for one and doesn't work for another and how people react. And I think Robert, 1 or 2, but Nicole, I think you made reference from a gym point of view about how you see the variances in people. That's what we've got to look at. So if you yes, we need to get people active. Yes, we need to get people to keep their weight under control, lose weight. Yes, cut down on smoking, vaping, all of those sorts of things. But if we look at the person and then the environment in which they work, and understand how as people we function, then it makes the whole risk management process, I think, a lot easier. And I think because we keep segmenting it into little silos again, and this whole mental health piece, as much as I'm really supportive, and my business runs an EAP service, but our EAP service is not just psychological, it's physical, it's sleep, it's nutrition, it's everything. It's not just, it does financial and it does GP services, but it's not just treating people in little component parts. So I think as part of going through this, and certainly if we go down the biopsychosocial, we'll bring some of that in. But I think with what, and Trevor's had to drop off to change his shirt, I think with some of what Trevor's trying to do and Mowat and the other people, I think that it all comes into that, is that we need to look at risks in a different way. And so often, it doesn't matter which HSE, IOSH, a lot of the risk management fraternity, the health and safety fraternity, they're all going in that single siloed approach. So maybe that's as part of the projects we decide on, which seems to be 2, if people agree, we can actually focus on doing something fresh and new. One of the concerns from the WRSM is very much about, there will be some people that won't want to do a project, they won't want to get involved, they want to learn and learn from each other. So how can we facilitate that for those that don't want to maybe get involved in this? And I think everybody that's involved today probably does want to do more on this front, but we have got other members of the group that are not here today that need to use it as a sort of networking event, a professional development event, but may not want to do this sort of work. So what do we think about that? How can we best support those people that haven't got the time, or they don't want to sort of take it down this pathway?
I think it's ask people first. I think it sounds so easy to say it that way, doesn't it? But I think if we try engage them, try to say, look, we know not everyone's going to be able to contribute in the same way, same amount of resources or the same amount of hours or even energy. But how do we, what does everyone want out of this? Like, I think you started it off really well, asking us that when we first started it. Maybe put it on LinkedIn out there, and we say, look, what does everyone actually want to actually get out of this? But B, what are you able to put in? And that very honest conversation about what they want to put in could then allow us to shape that, to say, right, okay, there's a few events that you might want to attend, great, we can sort that out. You might want a bit of mentoring, brilliant. You might have an issue you want to challenge. We can kind of streamline it to kind of put it together to say, right, this team's going to do that, this team's going to do that, this team's going to do that, which might be the easier way of doing it, rather than what happened in the past, in the kind of first iteration of it all. And Trevor's not here, but I think Lauren's jumped on the call, and she might kind of agree with this a bit, was there was a lot, there's quite a wide number of people in the group, there's quite a lot of different things going on, and there wasn't really a set strategy of, right, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and everyone had different commitment requirements, so people weren't able to kind of jump on and do it as much as you wanted. So that for me was when everything started going here, there, and everywhere. I remember being part of a group, and I think Trevor might have been there as well. There was only about 2 or 3 of us on the call at one point because, you know, it was only the only time we could get people together, but people had audits going on, people had exams, all this different stuff was going on. So I think it's just being very honest with what do people have coming up, when can they kind of contribute, and what do they want to contribute. And I think if we can get that, then hopefully we can start planning ahead with a bit more of a kind of realistic strategy of what we can do and achieve.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. And Lauren, hello. I don't think we've met. Do you want to add to what Robert's just said?
No, I complete. Hi everyone.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi Pamela. I haven't met yet, but yeah, it's nice to see you. No, exactly what Robert just said. When this group initially started, there were sort of three main streamlined work activities going on, and everyone had a lot of motivation to begin with. A lot happened at the beginning, and then kind of when we came to sort of have some kind of output at the end, where sort of a lot more time commitment was required, I think a lot of people started to drop off. And yeah, it was the second iteration was a bit better. We had a Asana set up, which allowed for a bit more interaction outside of just meetings.
Yeah.
And I thought that was quite good. But again, work streams were very small numbers of people. So if like one person couldn't commit to as much as the others, then you know you only had a couple of people doing any work on it. And yeah, so it was a bit more challenging with a smaller number of people.
And I think this was what the IRSN, when we had the first meeting a couple of months ago now, was their concern is that they felt they didn't want to go down the project route, because for exactly that reason, because people can't commit the time. And I think, you know, to Robert's point, you know, that it has been a disparate group, probably, you know, is always going to be a disparate group. Different people want different things out of it. And I think for me, it's more about, we've got different people with different objectives and different motivations to do different things. And I think those that want to work on certain projects and get an output, then it's about committing to that. But again, like you say, some people were vocal about it, but then couldn't find the time. But then you've got other people that just want to listen and learn and ask questions and be mentored, or you know, so and I think that's what we've got to try and accommodate, isn't it?
Can you split it down into work streams, as in if there's a project work stream that goes off, and these are the ones that want to get involved in the project, and they can commit the time and whatever else, and those that can't but want to do X, Y, and Z can go into another work stream, and then you use these meetings as a form of bringing it all together. So each work stream kind of feeds back into the group of where they're at, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and kind of gets buy-in and consults kind of that way. So right, this is the project, this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to achieve, this is where we're currently at. What's your opinion on that? And you bring that back to the group to kind of get a bit of steer, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think the way, because at the end of the day, this is your network. So the group can actually do whatever it wants to do in terms of that, and therefore we would actively encourage people to actually split into those work streams and actually do those things, and then come back and feed back to the group. So yeah, Robert, I think it's a great idea, and I think it is just about organising from today who's going to do what really, and where there is that natural alignment. I mean, we've got 2 projects that seem to be sort of emerging from, you know, that psychological one, and then that one that Trevor has been working on with Mohit. And I think that is a very important one as well. So maybe we can actually get people into work streams in relation to that. But then, as T'other Robert said, we do go out to ask people what commitment, what they want to get out of it, which is I did on the first session. But it is that, what commitments can they make? What do they want to put in? How do they want it run? And that's probably on a one-to-one basis, that we just send a note out to everybody and ask that question. and maybe get that answer. Yeah. Have we got Trevor back, Ozzy? You're back now.
I mean, that
Yeah,
was,
sorry,
wasn't
yeah. Quick photo
He's
shoot.
dressed.
You know, we're doing the Three Peaks Challenge in June, so we're just doing a bit of publicity and stuff like that. So for Dementia UK. So yeah.
Oh, well, you have to get everybody. You have to send
Well,
out.
yeah, I'll send the link round, shall I?
Yeah, send the link round. Yeah, no, I mean, all these charities are valid charities, so it's always difficult to know what to choose. So I think, and we haven't got Leo back, have we? No, but we've got Lauren on the corner. So I think what we seem to be getting to, Trevor, whilst you was away, is that the two projects that we outlined before you sort of disappear. But Robert, as in Duke's, came up with a good point in terms of what we need to do, is because it's all about, some people haven't got the time to commit or don't want to. So we want to make sure that this group actually gives those people what they want. If they don't want to get involved in projects, if they don't want to get involved in, commitment for anything, and therefore, you left, as Lauren said, when you try and get an outcome, it's left down to a few people, which is the RISM we're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
I think if we've got some good stuff that this group wants to continue, then those that are interested should continue that. But then we've also got to make sure we do what's right for the other people. And I think if I put a note out and ask people what they want and how much they can put in, but then I think we start, if you pull your note together, and then either Leo or if not Leo, one of us will actually put something together on that psychological piece and put it into that. And then Robert, as in Robert, suggested maybe then separate to these meetings, we split out into work streams so that there's other things going on in the background for those that want to be involved in the different sides. And it's how best we organise that, really. And I think we probably need to put something out to say who wants to be in what work stream. So once we've got the note from you as to what you're going to call yours, and then what Leo wants to call his, but then we can actually put a note to say who wants to be involved and how much time commitment can you give to this or not. Is probably, I think that's probably where we've got to. Does everybody agree, disagree? Want to add anything?
I think it's a good place to start. I think.
Yeah.
You might find that people it might evolve anyway. Just with getting those sort of outlines out. I think that's the good place to start. I think.
Yeah, because otherwise we're just going to keep having
going around in circles.
And going around in circles, and we're not going to get anywhere. And I think there's a lot of people in this group today that do want to contribute and get somewhere with it. And I think therefore, we should allow that to happen. And then if there's other people that are not here today that just want a different approach, see how best we can accommodate them. Robert, as in Nicole, with the work streams, did you envisage maybe a work stream for those people that were literally sort of don't want to commit to a project? Would you see a separate work stream for them, or any ideas on how we can best keep people engaged from that?
Yeah, I'm not sure really. I suppose you first and foremost have to find out what kind of level people want to get into, because if there's only one person that wants to do said thing, then setting up a work stream for one person is null and void, isn't it? So
yeah,
the majority wanting to get in a project, but or a minority or a same proportion of people want to just do, whether it's networking or whether it's just discussions on other pieces, then I suppose you could bring that into another one. But I suppose first and foremost is kind of finding out people's overarching reasons for joining the group and the objectives they've got for themselves that they want, and the output they want to get from the back end of it. I wouldn't want to pigeonhole and say it should be this, it should be that, it should be the other. I think that needs to be a collective agreement, really.
Yeah, and when we did it, the last one, it was quite varied. We got varied industries, but also in terms of people's involvement in risk and health and safety was considerable as well. So some people that were, I mean, one of the members, spending all of her time in a lab doing, a critical and very important job. So, you know, she's very much looking to actually really understand how other sort of professionals actually think, what they do. And so that was, I mean, very much a learning situation to the likes of Trevor and Moet and people that are, you know, very much, you know, they've done this before and project wise. Lauren's got her hand up. So Lauren.
Yeah, so previously I was involved in a careers work stream.
Yeah.
We produced some career guidance, but I was wondering if we could sort of tailor a work stream towards some kind of like how to progress in your career, and that could include all the networking, mentoring type of things, if people are interested in that kind of thing.
No, I don't see any reason why not, Lauren. And if you've done that before, would you like to sort of set that up to the group as an offer to see if you get any interest?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Because as I say, you know, we haven't got to be limited, because, you know, we've only got scheduled for these meetings, I think 4 in the year or whatever it is. It's not many. So if things aren't going off, you know, and people doing things outside of these meetings, then we're not going to get much progress. So I think if you want to run one on careers, I think, you know, that's a great idea. And then just, I mean, see what people are interested in. If they're not interested, then it goes back to Robert's point. If we've only got one, then we haven't got a group. But I think there are quite a few people that would be interested in that career development piece and how they move, you know, up the organisation and get those conversations sort of going. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I can take that on. No, yeah, that's not a problem.
Anybody else want to take anything else on? I mean, I'm quite interested with Robert Nicol. I mean, because from that whole people piece, you're, you know, in that whole provision of trying to get people fit and healthy, and that again is trying to address people's attitudes, beliefs, behaviours, and all sorts of things. But you mentioned a point about different people in different gyms having different problems, and therefore how you actually make the reasonable adjustments to sort of accommodate that. One of the things I wanted to ask is, do you have any occupational health support with that, or is that just from what you're actually doing from your each gym's management structure that you actually sort of do that?
So it depends. So if we're talking an employee who has a certain health condition that has certain requirements, yes, we will get OC Health in. But if we were talking about a member who was looking to join a gym and had X, Y, and Z health conditions, we wouldn't get OC Health in. We'd do reasonable adjustments on the back of what they informed us and let them guide us on that. As an example, someone with mobility issues who, say, let's say a wheelchair user, we would look to I don't want to say not allow, we would advise them not to use the gym during periods of unsupervised hours, or if they were to use the gym during period of unsupervised hours, then we would encourage them to obviously bring a buddy or someone along with them who could help them in the event of evacuation. Because generally when it's level ground access, it's fine, but when you're thinking multi-floors or mezzanine levels and happen to navigate stairs, that's the kind of reasonable adjustments we'd look at. Obviously there's some which are harder to deal with when we're thinking of things like eating disorders and exercise in gyms. It's very, very tricky. There's no industry guidance, and as an industry we're terrible at it, so each case is treated differently. So yeah, it can be quite challenging as such, but generally employees we will take OC Health where we need to. Members we generally don't, because of the cost involved. Let's be honest, people are paying less than 20 quid a month for membership. Are we then is it then reasonable for us to then go out and get an occupational health referral for a member who may cancel their membership 1 month down the line? In my view, no. No,
and I would agree with that. It's just interesting to sort of, because I, again, with somebody that I go to exercise classes and there is a gym there, but I don't specifically use a gym. But it's always quite interesting as to what the different types of people that actually use a gym and actually sort of why. So I think it's interesting to understand the risks that actually presents with itself. But and I think as we're trying to encourage people to get active and healthy, then a gym is a natural place for people to go. So I think it's really quite interesting for us to actually understand some of the issues that you face.
Yeah, especially when we talked about earlier, Robert was talking about psychological risk and general well-being and health and well-being. It is the whole package. It's like you can't be like, right, this looks after your physical well-being, this looks after your mental well-being, because you'll find that 90% of people go to the gym for their mental well-being, and the fitness, the benefits they get from the physical side is a plus. It's escapism, isn't it? Let's be honest, in our day-to-day life these days, these things mean we never escape. So if whether it's going for walking your dogs for an hour, climbing up a mountain, getting to the gym, or I don't know, playing an instrument, you find that brings the escapism, and that brings you that I don't know, that brings you back down to earth and brings you back down into a place of calm, I guess.
I think that's really important, Robert, in terms of, like, we talked about AI and the benefits of that. But where do you get your access to your AI? It's actually an instrument or a piece of equipment that actually can affect your mental health. So it's a real mix, isn't it? Nothing's easy, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why that whole technology piece, and I don't think we can't do everything unless anybody wants to specifically do it as a project. But I think that whole techno piece, and particularly with AI and machine learning, which is now everywhere, and more organizations are going to be using it, because I mean, it makes so much sense that if you can get AI to do something well that reduces the work that the people don't like doing, and it saves time, people are going to go for that. But the negative is people are going to be worried about their jobs. It goes back to when I was at school, it was like, oh well, everything's going to be replaced by robots in the future, and it's like, it's a different issue that we have to face, because it's becoming reality, is that suddenly technology is going to take over a lot of work that the people used to do. So what are we doing with those people? And I think it also goes to Robert's point about the whole capability and the skill mix and the loss of skills and things like that. That's only going to get worse, because people will use AI and won't develop skills. And so I think it's quite serious, but that's such a huge piece. I don't think.
I think also, the solution from a company point of view might be that replace a person with AI or software, but is that the best thing for the people interacting with its well-being? Do you want the person to go to a shop and always go to the scan machine? Actually, some people might quite like to go to a shop and chat to the person behind the till, and might make them feel better. And that's a bad example in terms of what we're talking about, but the solution for the industry and the efficiency maybe not be the solution for the best well-being.
Well,
that's a big subject.
From a customer point of view, isn't it? Because I think we're all consumers, but some of the worst things that I face, my husband faces, is when you end up talking to a machine or having to do things digitally online, and you cannot talk to a person, and the person would be able to answer your question in minutes, as opposed to the machines. You go round and round houses, and you still don't get.
And I think AI will obviously cause its own problems. Like a good way I compare it to is when spell check came in as an example, and people started typing, so people started using computers rather than handwriting. The standards of people's writing now is probably lower than it was 20 years ago. The standards of people's spelling now is probably lower than it was 5 years ago, because we are relying on these technological advances that kind of dumb down our core skills, so to speak. So what happens with AI on that? Obviously that's not, my brain's not technically minded to come up with that conclusion. But
should support, not replace, is one argument, isn't it?
Exactly. So it's the unintended consequences, isn't it, of what we've got with this? And I think, to me, it would be a fascinating piece to tackle, but there's only so much we're going to do in a year, and less than a year now. So unless anybody passionately wants to try and do something on this techno side, which I think is absolutely fascinating, do we just focus on what we've actually said, which is the psychological?
I think technology falls across all of them, and maybe you touch on it. And if you see a route through that it's worth exploring, maybe that sets a structure for a follow-up, or it takes over. I don't know, but it's got to be. You've got to consider it. You can't just.
You can't ignore it because
but don't let it take over. I suppose the principles.
I mean, like you say, it impacts on the work that you've been doing, but on the psychological stuff, it has huge impacts. But you don't seem to see much around how you risk assess it and sort it. So maybe that's what this group can do, or at least start on the journey with it. Are we happy with the direction that this is going in? Is Trevor's going? Are you going yes?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
So Robert, are you happy?
Yeah.
Lauren?
Yeah, so I've just joined, so I guess yeah.
Yeah, you're about an hour late, so don't.
Sounds good so far.
Yeah. So and just I can't remember, but Robert, you were probably off when Lauren kindly volunteered to actually run a work stream which is going to look at careers. So people that are looking at how to sort of develop their careers, how to progress in their work and things like that. She's done it before, so she's willing to actually mail people and actually sort of see whether anybody's interested in running a work stream on that. So it sounds as though we've got 3 key things from today, which is two projects and then another one which is that it is going to sort of support those that are probably not involved in the projects, or some people may be involved in the projects and want to do both. So it's trying to get just the group working together so that there's a lot going on outside of these meetings. Anything else that you want to touch? I've got another couple of things that I just want to mention before we go, but anything else that you want to touch on today?
From me, no.
No, not from me. Kind of learning the flow of these groups, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm new at this as well, because this is, I mean, my second meeting, but it's like and I think from listening to those that have been around before, there have been issues, which is why the RRSM wanted to change it away from projects into things that were more sort of networking and discussion. But at the same time, I think there's some good work that's been done, that it would be a shame to sort of lose that if people are interested in doing that. Everybody happy? So the other thing is that apparently, and we've got none of the Middle Eastern people on now, but the Salama bursary is open until it closes next Monday, so we probably need just to get a note out on that. And then there's some up and coming professional development webinars. Has everybody seen the note on that? Or yeah, so everybody got that. There's one I'm doing in I think it's November with workplace options, so I'm on the panel, but that's on the whole people risk bit. Then there's obviously the predict to prevent psychological health and safety, so that probably links in with what we've talked about today. And then obviously you need to book your tables for the Risk Excellent Awards dinner. So anything else from anybody? What sort of minutes would you like from these meetings? So in terms of a summary of the meetings, do you want me to do a summary of notes of what we've discussed today and linked it with what we discussed the last time? Would that help?
Yeah, I think minutes for action points definitely would be useful. Bullet points would be
Definitely
useful.
The actions as well.
Yeah, definitely to clarify, because we talk, these meetings, like every meeting tends to be talk a lot and discuss lots of good stuff. Maybe just clarifying those key actions, I think, is very, very important.
Okay. And then who's going to do what as well? So I think if we can get that email out about who wants to be involved in what,
that definitely needs to be too complicated, but just key actions and who's responsible.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll hold them to it. All right. Well, if nobody's got anything else, then thank you very much for your time today. I think it's been an interesting sort of discussion and debate. I think we are moving forward and we're getting somewhere. But I think it's now going to be up to those of you that want to take things forward to sort of crack on and do things. So I'll try and get those notes out.
The only other thing, Pamela, is that obviously it's one of the things I found, and I'm sure Lauren probably, she might agree, might not. We did quite a lot of work early on with the group and how it's structured, and it didn't quite work last time. But we did discuss maybe having a time at some point in the year that we all get together and have, whether it's a half a day and have that discussion face to face, because you can sort of really get that engagement. I think people are getting tired of Teams and video calls, and time difference is a really big problem. And even the people from overseas being on that sort of dedicated half day, but on a decent video stream into the room and feeling like they're engaged, as opposed to just being at work, so they can sort of allocate the time. I don't know if what people think about that, but puts a bit more onus, and there's an opportunity for WSM to sort of promote it. Rather than a half day for the emerging risk leaders, you might get a bit more engaged. It's a bit more structured in terms of what the group does, but that takes a bit of organising, doesn't it? We discussed it a little bit before. We never really pushed it, but it might be something with a slightly smaller group at the moment. Might be something we can do and build on.
Lauren, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, it was just not related really too much to Trevor's point, but it was more about how we can advertise these sort of things to within our group, and how we sort of, I don't know, get together. I guess, like what sort of communication channels are there available to us that we can use for these kind of.
Well, I mean, from what Julie had said to me, it was via the LinkedIn channel. But has anybody used that as a way of communicating?
I don't know if there's a group we can set up that's within, because obviously you have to be a private, semi-private group with outcomes being shown on the main page. I don't know LinkedIn way of working that way. But
I'll have a chat to Julie. Yeah, because she's an expert on LinkedIn.
I know we used Asana for a bit of the projects last time, which I don't know, Lauren, your group did quite a lot with it, and we were less constructive with it, but
yeah, as was a lot of written work, I think, so we had to sort of interact quite frequently to kind of review things and that, and it was really good for that.
But less networking, wasn't it? It was more of a tracker, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's more like a project management tool, I would say, sort of thing. Yeah, but you could assign tasks and things, which was kind of quite useful, because I did get a lot of notifications through to remind me to do stuff.
Yeah, which you always need in a busy diary. Let me have a chat with Julie and see what she says, and then I'll post something to everybody. But because I think that came up earlier as well, Laura, and I'm not quite sure whether you were on at that stage about what are we using, but LinkedIn was, I think, what Julie suggested. So I'll have a look at that. But going back to Trevor's point about a get together, I haven't got an issue with people getting together. It is obviously the overseas that we can invite them, but the chances of them being able to attend is probably minimal. So unfortunately, we haven't got any of them on the call now. So
it might be that if we do one here and set a bit of a structure of what that looks like, and then they can adopt it where they are. I don't know. It was just something we touched on that never really came about, but it's we were talking about like all the different project streams. We're going to present what they're doing and do a little bit of networking that way. But I mean, I don't think that structure sits with what we're doing. But just getting together within the timeline actually helps to concentrate the mind a bit. And I'm sure everyone in this call would nod that everyone's really busy.
Yeah.
So it concentrates the mind a little bit to aim for and work within.
We could all go to the Middle East, of course.
Right. Well,
that's a good shout.
Who's the member in Barbados? Yeah, that's what we need.
Oh, I haven't seen a member from Barbados.
Oh,
I'd definitely go there. Yeah.
I'll find one for us. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, get the LinkedIn invite, Robert, sorted.
Yeah, no, because we've got Doha, we've got Saudi, and where else have we got? Where is Moet? Where is Moet based?
He was in Qatar last time we were talking. He's working there.
Yeah, okay. And Rashid popped in and off again, so I can't remember where he was.
I mean, we could just meet at the gym with Robert Nichol. Really, I mean, I need to get a bit of fitness in for my charity walk, so maybe we do that.
Go for it, mate.
There you go, Robert.
Don't joke. I'll be sending the request.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well, if there's nothing else, then thank you very much for your time, and I'll take the actions and get something out to you. It'll probably be next week, realistically.
Yeah.
All
Thanks,
right.
Pamela.
All right, thanks
Brilliant.
very much, everybody.
Nice
Thanks
meeting you.
all.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.